Welcome to FCLE Seminar, the Florida Civic Literacy Exam podcast, where we crash course civic concepts so you can pass the test. I'm your host, Mercedes Musto, and today we're diving into a case that redefined the limits of federal power. United States versus Lopez, 1995. This landmark Supreme Court case is about guns, schools, and something called the Commerce Clause. What? Guns? Schools? That sounds controversial. Landmark Supreme Court case number 22, the U.S. versus Lopez, 1995. Case background. Picture this. It's 1990 in San Antonio, Texas, and we're looking at a 12th grader named Alfonso Lopez Jr. Why? Because Mr. Lopez was caught with a concealed weapon, a handgun, while at school, high school to be exact. Now, Lopez was initially charged under Texas law for possessing a handgun on school grounds. Yeah, you think? But the plot thickens. The very next day, federal agents step in and the state charges are dismissed. What? Why? Because Lopez is now facing a federal charge for violating the Gun-Free School Zones Act of 1990. What's that? Well, according to the U.S. Department of Justice, OJP.gov, the Gun-Free School Zones Act of 1990, quote, makes it illegal for any individual to knowingly possess a firearm in a school zone. So Lopez goes to trial, a bench trial, meaning trial by judge, not by jury, and he's found guilty. His sentence? 6 months in prison and 2 years of supervised release. But wait, there's more. Lopez's legal team isn't done. They argue that the federal law itself is unconstitutional. What? Their reasoning? Congress overstepped its authority under the Commerce Clause. Or the Commerce Clause, what's that? I mean, are we talking about the same thing? Let's back up. The Commerce Clause found in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to regulate commerce among the several states. Now, historically, this clause has been a source of federal power, letting Congress regulate, a whole lot of stuff. Okay, I got it, but where do guns and schools fit in? Now that there is the question that the Supreme Court had to answer. So the question at the Supreme Court becomes, does the 1990 Gun-Free School Zones Act violate the Constitution by exceeding Congress's authority under the Commerce Clause? Yeah, so this got really complicated really fast. The court's decision. In a 5-4 decision, the court ruled in favor of Lopez. See, Chief Justice William Rehnquist wrote the majority opinion, and he didn't mince words. The answer was yes. Repeat the question? Sure. Does the 1990 Gun-Free School Zones Act violate the Constitution by exceeding Congress's authority under the Commerce Clause? Yes. Well, why? Because possessing a gun in a school isn't an economic activity. It doesn't have a substantial effect on interstate commerce, even if you squint and imagine a chain reaction of hypotheticals. Okay. Well, now, naturally, not everyone agreed. The dissenting justices argued that this case does affect education and, by extension, the economy. However, the majority's ruling was about federal laws tied to the Commerce Clause. See, this entanglement is a classic debate that begs the question, how far should federal power reach? And here, the court drew a line in the sand. Congress cannot use the Commerce Clause as a blank check to regulate anything and everything. See, this is a big deal in the checks and balances of power. The constitutional principle. The principle at play here is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. Could you be more specific? Well, yes. Thank you. I will. See, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3 states Congress shall have power, and it goes on to define power in the terms of commerce, such as to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among several states and with Indian tribes. With the term commerce and regulate, let's just say, left to broad interpretation. Let's review. The key takeaways from U.S. versus Lopez are, number one, Commerce Clause limitation. The Supreme Court ruled that the Gun-Free School Zones Act of 1990 exceeded Congress's authority under the Commerce Clause. See, the possession of a gun in a school zone was not an economic activity that substantially affected interstate commerce. Number two, defining the scope of commerce. The decision marked a significant limit on Congress's Commerce Clause power, emphasizing that federal authority cannot extend to regulating purely local, non-economic activities without a clear interstate commerce connection. See, this narrowed the definition of what constitutes commerce within the meaning of the Commerce Clause. And balance of power. U.S. versus Lopez had a significant impact on the balance of power between the federal government and the states. To wrap it up, the big takeaway from this case is that the federal government's power has limits. The Commerce Clause is for economic stuff that affects commerce across the states, not for controlling every local issue. See, states have their own turf, and Lopez was a win for keeping that balance. That's it for this episode of FCLE Seminar. Hey, where do you weigh in on the guns in schools in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution? Have any thoughts on that? Naturally, this case is much more complicated than we covered today, so send me your questions in the comments. We're at FCLE Seminar, and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you here back soon. This is Mercedes Musto signing off.